Hi, my name is Diana and I'm a children's art instructor at Visual Arts Brampton. Visual Arts Brampton is happy to bring to you our Holy Hand Art Workshop in partnership with Visual Arts of South Asia Art Festival of 2022, organized by the Art and Culture Initiative of South Asia. Alright, let's get started. What you'll need is 2 sheets of watercolor paper, a pair of scissors, a glue stick, a cup of water, a craft sponge or one from the kitchen as the appearance for help first before cutting one up, and some watercolors. Using the first sheet of paper, I'm going to place my hand in the center, making sure some of my arm is in frame as is part of our artwork. Using a pencil, I'm going to carefully trace all around each finger. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And we want to bring it all the way down to the end. Now we're going to take this piece of paper and put it at the side for later. On our second piece of paper, we're going to recreate the background of a holy festival. Using some bright watercolors, we're going to recreate the vibrant powdered dye thrown amongst each other in the fun. Now, we're going to use a sponge to recreate the texture of powdered dye being thrown in the air. So to start, we're going to take our sponge and dip it in our water, squeezing out the excess to activate our watercolors. We're going to need water for our watercolors. Now, not too wet and not too dry, we're going to pat into a paint color. I'm going to use a nice bright blue because I use nice bright colors in the festival. And I'm just going to dab. Now I want to start by covering the edges just so it feels like a full art piece. Try to keep the shape together, but don't be afraid to trail off, leaving some white in the background. Now these little pieces of paint, it acts like powder that's being thrown, so we like to leave it there. Now, to change the color, I need to clean my sponge first. So I'm going to take my dirty sponge and I'm going to put it in the water and squeeze out the excess paint. Now you can see that since I use blue, I have some nice blue water now. Fun for painting, not for drinking. Now that my sponge is clean, I'm going to take it and put it in a new color. I'm going to use a nice pink. And I'm going to pick up a lot of pink because pink is such a light color, it might disappear in our paper. There we go. And we're going to keep going. Now don't be afraid if your color shows up too light because we could always pick up more paint. We could also do a technique called, in watercolor, wet on dry. Now we see that it's not quite what we want. We want something a little more darker like this. So what I could do, I'll show you. Now I'm going to clean this color, squeezing out the excess. And watercolor dries pretty fast, so our blue is nice and dry. I'm going to take my sponge, put in the blue, and I'm going to go again on top of it. And you see how that blue is so much darker? So we're going to go a little bit, not too much, just so we can get that texture. And there we go. So I'm going to let this dry very nicely before adding more pink. I'm going to move on to the next color. I'm going to use a nice bright yellow. The Holi celebration was celebrated in ancient times, and to get the powdered dyes as the colors that they are, nice and bright and fun, they would use pigments found in nature. And don't be afraid if your colors touch a bit, because it could mix some, such as blue and yellow making a little bit of green. And I think my next color, I might do green. Now, the holy celebration isn't just about throwing powder for fun. It's also a cultural and religious celebration, honoring victory over evil in a story about kings and gods, and also a way to celebrate spring, new life, and new beginnings for yourself. At the end of a festival, some people, when they're washing off all the dye off their skin, they feel like it's washing themselves, cleansing themselves of past mistakes, and giving a chance of new beginnings. Now let's see, what's a color I haven't used yet? Maybe red? And if you find that your colors are a little too light, that could mean we have too much water. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna squeeze a little out, because with a drier brush or sponge, it's gonna make your colors a little darker. So let's see if that helped. Oh yeah, that's a nice dark red. And now I'm gonna finish off by maybe using a nice orange. Now the Holi celebration is celebrated by people of Hindu backgrounds, but it's also inclusive, meaning that they like to welcome others of different backgrounds, religions, and cultures to join in on the fun, making it a celebration celebrated around the world. You know what? Let's try adding purple too. I think we could squeeze it in. And again, don't be afraid of your colors touching, because we want to fill up this piece with bright colors. All right. Now we could say we're done, but I really like what we did up there. We got to see some light blues and some nice dark blues, and we really got to see that splatter effect. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take our sponge and I'm gonna squeeze out as much color as possible. So now that my sponge is nice and dry, as best as it could, because it was dipped in water, let's go revisit that pink. Now I'm going to take that sponge and tap it into the pink, and look, it's showing up really nicely. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to add some of that darker pink there. You could do this as many times as you want to get that color that you're looking for. If you want to do darker, let it dry and keep on going. I'm just gonna add a few here and there, just so we don't lose the texture in our color blobs. And voila, we're finished with our festival background. So we can see all the colored powdered dyes being thrown in the air. But what is it being thrown by? Hands. So with our hands, we're gonna take our scissors and we're gonna cut it out. Now be nice and careful with your lines for both the papers, because we're gonna be able to use both of these. So take care of both. So line up your scissors and start cutting, following the lines. It's okay if you don't follow the line exactly, because we're gonna flip it over so we have a nice clean hand. All right. So now that we're finished cutting out our hand outlines, we get to make a choice of which one we prefer. So I'm going to show you both choices before gluing it down. Now, what you can do, we can either do our hands without the powder. So it could be showing the hands throwing it into the air, or we can cover the paper and show how it looks like to take part in it. Now I like this one because I feel like it really takes in the celebration and show what it's all about. But it's up to you of which one you want to do. I'm just going to put this to the side. Now, when we're gluing it down, I'm going to start with the edges because that's where we really want our glue to stick. So I'm going to do extra in the corners because the corners tend to lift up a bit. I'm going to make sure I have extra on the parts that might lift up, so the corners and the edges. And since we have a paper underneath, we don't have to worry about getting glue on the table. Now I'm going to line it up very carefully, corner to corner. And when I feel like it's nice and even, I'm going to smooth it out, nice and slow. Now I have a little here, but that's okay because we could always cut off the extra part. So don't worry if it's not perfect, because we're not worried about being perfect. We're just worried about having fun and exploring other cultures and different types of art. And there we go. So when we're done, I'm going to write my name. And I'm going to write the year so I remember when I made this art piece. Now for those of you that wants to just include the hand on top of the festival, turn it over on the back where it has all your lines and spread glue all over the fingers, making sure you capture each and every one. So with my hand covered in glue, my fake hand, not my real hands, I'm gonna carefully peel it off. I don't want this ripping because we worked so hard on it. And we want to line it nice at the bottom. So line it at the bottom. And if you miss, that's okay because we could trim it off with some scissors. And I'm just going to smooth it all down. All right, so there we go. Make sure your hand is nice and glued down to your background and give yourself a big high five because we're done. Good job. Thank you for watching our video. For more information, please visit visualartsbrampton.com. Bye-bye.